Hi, and welcome to the SkillTree podcast. On the show, we'll be interviewing the team behind SkillTree, its community, and the creators that are making the movement happen. On the show today, we have two very special guests, my friend Nate and Ray. Welcome.
Thank you, Jack. Pleasure to be here.
So, yeah, if you guys would like to just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, how you met, anything you'd like to share, feel free. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start us off. Yeah, so my name's Nathaniel. I go by Nate. I'm originally from LA. I just finished my master's at UCSD in computer engineering, and last year I finished my bachelor's in computer engineering. Just, I guess, a little bit. I'm co-founder, guess, kind of team lead for the whole product side of the app, and a little background of me. I have a passion for just building things. I used to be on BattleBots, big kind of robotics and hardware guy. And then I used to do high school robotics actually with Ray. He can touch on it more. But whole reason I went into computer engineering is I think software brings everything to life. Obviously, I'm pretty strong like hardware and technical aspect, but computer engineering gives me the broad of learning a little bit about everything.
Wait, did you?
No, it's good. It's good.
Uh,
Um, and yeah, like building, I think this is probably the hardest thing I've done as to date by like just technically. And yeah, it's been a big journey.
all right, thank you, Nathaniel. I'm Ray. I'm a third year computer engineering student doing my bachelor's. As Nathaniel said before, I did robotics with him in high school, and ever since I remember, I always enjoyed building things. On SkillTree, I'm the backend engineer, where I bring together a lot of the backend data, and I also enjoy doing computer engineering because I like doing software and seeing how it can create an impact on the work I do.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. So yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about, how the app was built, a little bit about the team dynamic, any challenges we got along the way, and future plans that we have for SkillTree. So stay tuned. I do want to talk a little bit more about, you guys talked about, you were both computer engineering, and now you both switched to software. What was like the main thing that made you switch?
I
Yeah,
think I could start on that first. I always liked coding, and I was the lead programmer for the team in robotics, and I always liked uh, programming relative to hardware aspects, but I also did like being hands-on. So I think computer engineering had a good balance of that, and that felt like a good fit for me.
yeah. I would also say I'm in the similar boat. I think Ray has coded a lot more than I have. I like to learn a little bit about everything and I'm trying to understand everything technically around me. And I think kind of computer engineering taught me just the theory behind and like thinking behind the whole, I guess, scientific process or engineering process, if we want to be specific about it. But yeah, I wouldn't even say software is my strong suit. I think I kind of take it everything as a whole and really in focusing on the big picture and like the vision and filling in my technical gaps along the way.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's very cool. Let's talk a little bit about the app. I know both of you joined a little bit later from when we initially started building the team. Just want to hear a little bit about like what incentivized you to join. And I know Nate brought you on. I'd love to know how that conversation went and kind of your thought process.
Yeah, I can I guess start us off. So yeah, Jack and I were roommates and I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but it was sometime in February and you were telling me what you were working on. And I remember I was like, let's build it. Let's make the app. At the time, I had no idea. I didn't know anything about React Native, TypeScript, AWS. I only really like coded in Java, Python, like the basic languages, and I had no really app experience. We started with, I don't know if you remember, we started with Tamagui for styling and stuff, and that was a whole mess. But yeah, I mean, how we started, like I would just say like how you kind of start anything. If you got a question, there's just so many resources. You have chat, you have Google, you just how do I build an app? Watch a video, start reading documentation, start learning about like coding architecture, start reading documentation on certain languages, ask chat how do you implement certain stuff. And yeah, I mean, we really started, I would say, building out the app in March. I would say that's when we really got like a good hands on things. I don't remember, I think we had 10 people or 12 people at the time, but it's also just figuring out where we needed front end, where we needed back end, what we needed to do with the model, what we needed to do with the recommender system. And yeah, I mean, I'll give it to Ray. I remember I called him and I was like, "Do you want to, work on SkillTree?" And he can talk about the rest.
Yeah, so a little bit after, in the beginning of this year, I got a call from Nathaniel. We've been calling pretty consistently just to kind of work together on various things, but he kind of told me about this app SkillTree and how it would gamify fitness. And before then, I had a little bit of backend experience also working with AWS, but not a lot of these services that would really power an app, more of like small services that would fit small parts of like a web app. So I thought that this would be a great experience to try to build something I believed in. I loved the idea and also expand and challenge my technical expertise. As Nathaniel said, I also didn't have a lot of React experience beforehand, and a lot of these things, as well as like the challenges we took on, helped me really improve my technical background.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think from what everything was, I know from what Nate was saying, there's definitely been like a lot of learning that went along the way. With the 12-person team, that was definitely a little misstep in in my planning in the beginning. And I think, Nate taking on a lot of the technical management has helped a lot. Um, and he's really been the driving force behind kind of the product itself. I would say I really had the beginning steps of, doing the UI UX and some of the front end, but I think it's really evolved into something a lot bigger from there. Um, and yeah, we definitely had a lot more challenges along the way. I remember, I mean, just the team structure itself, I think, was challenging as we were learning how to do kind of like management as well as developing at the same time. It was a terrible, terrible decision. We should have just started to create the product ourselves rather than trying to find people to help and teach them how while we're still learning. Like it doesn't make any sense. Um, but yeah, I'm really happy we figured it out. I'm sure you guys faced a lot of challenges along the way as well. If you want to speak on any of that.
Yeah, I mean, one big one that comes to mind is our app was crashing when we integrated everything. So for everyone, I guess tuning in, our languages are for our front end is React Native with TypeScript, and then our back end is AWS. We're using Amplify for authentication and DynamoDB for the database. And for the AI models, we're using MediaPipe. So when we integrated, oh, and Fast API for our recommender system. But when we integrated everything together, so how it works with React Native is it's an iOS folder and an Android folder. Obviously, we only released for the App Store. And we basically had a package problem that we were unaware about, and the app was just crashing, and we weren't really too sure why. And we spent 2 weeks on this issue. I remember Musa and I were just, every day trying different things. Basically what it was is there was some G logs. So MediaPipe has G log, which is written by Google, and there were some log errors when you import the package. And we didn't know at the time, but you have to specify the iOS version. And our iOS version wasn't specified. We only found that out when we tried to switch to Google ML Kit, which is a different post detection library. And then we also tried to make our own package um, through Babel. And we even tried to get some help from Upwork. And, the professional help wasn't really, they were like, this is too hard of a technical challenge. It came out to one line of code. Basically, you just specify the iOS version and the crash stopped. I would say, I mean, most of the problem is actually not the coding and the little bugs, package errors, compatibility stuff is very big with building with apps. I think it's just an iOS thing. I remember we also switched from Expo to Bare React Native, and we were just kind of optimizing and learning as we go.
Yeah, similarly for the back end, I think um, our biggest challenge was probably getting the authentication to work, which was completely unexpected. For me, I believe that it would be working with the database and getting that integrated within our app, but that was relatively simple compared to the authentication. In the beginning, we thought the authentication would take a couple of days. It spanned to like 2 weeks or a little bit longer because of all the similar like integration issues that we had. So not only were we learning AWS Cognito and like the way AWS architecture works when deploying like a test sandbox versus deploying to actual production build, but we were also learning how to integrate all the service providers like Google login, Apple login, and all the key features that need that to work in all the different devices that we have.
Yeah, a lot of challenges. I know you guys both use Cursor a lot to code, right? I would love to know, like, what are your thoughts on how you've been using Cursor and has it changed throughout, your time trying to develop?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, every talk kind of with AI, it's moving very fast. There's updates every day. Someone's pushing a new GBT model, right? All the big companies. Yeah, I mean, I think if you use in the beginning, we were kind of just using it to just code and vibe code is the correct term, which I don't recommend for anyone. It spits out a lot of spaghetti code if you just prompt something. I think the
What do you
correct
mean by spaghetti code?
so like if you were to prompt something like let's say build me a calculator app or you have a component that you want it to build like and you screenshot and say make this component for me. Cursor is going to write a lot of styling and extra logic that's kind of not needed, and that logic will be affected when you're trying to debug, right? As the app gets more and more complicated, those small issues are very difficult to debug. And you need to really take your time to understand the whole architecture and, how navigation works and routing and basically how exactly you're coding and not just having Cursor do it for you. I think a lot of the time now is spent documenting, reading, right? Like when I go to chat right now, I ask it like certain implementations of stuff. I want to add a voice feature to the model. How would I go about doing that? I spend my time reading first, right? I understand the architecture, and then I would go prompt the exact architecture I would want Cursor to implement, and then it would code it out for me. I think that's kind of the correct way to go about it. Obviously, it's very hard to use when you're scaling something. You're not gonna use AI, but just for MVP and like, beginning early stages, I think it definitely fast tracks the process.
Yeah, for me, I also feel like Cursor and AI tools in general really amplify the engineers that you are. So, in the beginning, when we were just trying to throw technologies and like prompts at Cursor, a lot of the times it can't figure it out. A lot of the authentication issues actually it can't figure out because it's very like niche errors that we were getting and like the nitty-gritty details that like an overall view can't get solved by like a LLM. And I think that one of these issues with LLMs as of now is that it gives you like an overall general answer that might not really apply to details that you might need. So for example, we wanted a onboarding sequence for new users, and one of the details is that we want the users that have already been through the sequence to not go through the sequence again. Because if you're a new user, you go through the sequence once. But when you pass this idea to Cursor, they don't have all the details laid out, and they might do it in a kind of overarching aspect that might run the user through the sequence again and again. And I think you really need to know behind the scene what's going on in order for you to guide the AI properly, or else, like Nathaniel said, it will spit out some spaghetti code that might not fit exactly what you need. And I think as of now, you need to know the details, but as AI continues to progress, it would be the more powerful tools like Lovable and Base 44 that integrate with all the backend components that begin to, you see, evolve and help engineers even more.
Yeah, I would just like to add on to that a little bit. I just remember when I started out, I remember making one of the first buttons on the app, and this was kind of before ChatGPT. This was like 2024 in the summer. And at that time, like, I know the AI wasn't as good, but yeah, it would basically give you a lot of things that maybe you already had components for, or maybe you already styled as a global variable, and it just didn't understand to like pull that. And a lot of time was spent reviewing and revising for me, which at that point is like, you probably could have done it by hand faster if you really chose to. Um, but it's definitely gotten a lot better at front end. I've noticed. I think to your point, Ray, like yeah, the back end stuff is now going to be the most sought after thing. Like all the tools like V0, like Figma, just IPO, they have a crazy, Figma make is, we tried that the other day. It was really quick at making some prototype design. So for people who are just starting out, like that is like a godsend. It is so insane. In comparison to how things were done before. It's unheard of. But that being said, yeah, later down the line, it can cause a lot of issues. I do agree. I wanted to share a little bit about kind of how things have gone since our release. So the app launched, I think, 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. Our marketing was primarily through LinkedIn. So I'm sure some people would be interested in knowing, like, how many downloads, how many viewers, like how did it all shake out, right? This is only the first week, so yeah, I'd love to share some of that real quick with you all. So here we can see this is a app analytics page. I don't know if anyone's ever had the experience of seeing this, but um, pretty interesting. They start counting at 12 a.m. and then they end at 11:59. So it's kind of like a day off of when the app was actually released. We have about 391 impressions with 23 units. And what that means is, about 400 people viewed the actual app's page, and then 23 people downloaded the app. And then these sessions here, 12 sessions, means how many people actually opened the app and started using it. So I think that's fairly interesting. And that all came from, I think, mainly these three LinkedIn posts here. If you can see, we had about 900. This is from last 7 days. I think I can expand this to 28. But yeah, you can see like total impressions, about 1,500, 1,500. This one hit about 3K, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, just consistently posting for 3 days actually create a lot of impressions. But off of these views and this many comments, you can kind of see the conversion rate there. Um, and of course, if it was truly an app that people, if we had a cleaner UI, possibly better features, less bugs, I'm sure there'd be a lot more product-led growth in that realm. But as it stands right now, there still needs to be a lot of fixes, and definitely seeing like where the value lies for people using the app, as we've only tested with friends and family. Um, but yeah, I mean, Nate, Ray, do you have any questions for me? As
Um, mm,
or if you even want to talk about some of the analytics or how you think the app is going to do, or any future plans.
yeah, yeah. I think how the app is gonna do so. We're currently trying to pivot, and we could probably talk about that 10 minutes from now, but I think the original skill tree idea was a great idea. In practicality, I think it's very difficult to kind of implement. There's just too much going on. And, I think kind of thinking it from a whole big picture, people don't like a lot of features. They usually like one or two things, right? Like if I name you some apps, for example, let's say the weather app, right? The weather app has 100 features that you probably have never even used. What do you do when you check on the weather? You just look at the weather, right? That's it. Maybe, and then you look at the following days of what that weather is, or your sleep or the health app, right? Like you're only going to look at certain metrics, maybe your health, like how long you've slept for, or how many steps. You're not going to look at 50 of those, whatever, those random features that are there and, kind of people don't really care about. And that's probably our problem, a big part from my, fall on my end as an engineer to over engineer something. I think it's just very normal. You kind of just learn as from experience. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think for so far for the first few days, I think 25 downloads honestly is not bad. It's probably gonna get to 50 by the end of the week. It's right, like you said, it's 2 days behind. 400 impressions is pretty good. We're also figuring out marketing. I think you probably can start averaging 10,000 impressions per post, right? If you kept at the pace, you can probably hit 100,000 impressions a month. Right, that's just you do your due diligence and you're writing authentic posts. But yeah, it's pretty difficult with what we're currently at. The recommenders, there's a bunch of workout apps. It's pretty difficult to compete. It's not really our bread and butter is the model, and that we're just tracking what reps that people are using our models, and everything else from the app is irrelevant. I had a few of my friends, I demoed the product. One said, the UI looks a little like playlish or like childish, and another was like, I don't care for all these features. But they said overall, like, pretty impressive. There's definitely ways that this can go. And yeah, I think I'm just rambling on. We can talk about the pivot in a minute, but if Ray, you have anything to add on.
Yeah, as of our launch, I
Cool.
think our stats are as expected. I don't think that we're necessarily launching as a end all and be all for our app. I think this next pivot that we're about to take is one that is necessary, and it's kind of a core to all startups. You never get the initial idea is never the end idea if you are going to be successful. And I think that I saw this launch as a step forward, not in the idea that our product is either successful or not. I saw it as a step forward, as in we are familiar and experienced with launching an app on the App Store. We know the processes that come with it, and we're also starting to get a bit of marketing experience where we know what works and doesn't. And I think that this is a good foundation for us moving forward when we do decide to pivot and for our future endeavors.
Yeah. let's talk about this pivot you guys are both mentioning. I know I'm pretty excited for it as well. I think it's a good move. It's But yeah, I'll have Nate explain it because I know you kind of came to me with the idea and I thought it was a great suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So for everyone kind of tuning in, the original idea was we build a Duolingo for working out, right? Like you do a bunch of workouts and you learn a skill like a handstand, a push-up, a squat. But in really, like if we really think about it, everyone kind of knows 4 or 5 basic exercise. Everyone can do push-ups, sit-ups, squats, right? Like it's something very basic someone can do. And what are we really solving, right? We were always debating, are we a lifestyle app? Are we a workout app? And I think that was, a really big problem as well. We were so focused on our solution, we didn't really look back at what we're solving. And with this new pivot, so what are the 2 things that people struggle with in the gym? One is accountability. It's probably the biggest one, right? Who holds you accountable to go to the gym? Who keeps you consistent? Like people start and they stop. I think a lot of you guys know, people have their New Year resolutions and they start the gym. Maybe they go first week, 2 weeks, and then as the months progress, oh, I'm too busy or I can't go. And the second thing is live feedback. How do I know if I'm doing something correctly? Right? You don't want to hire a coach or you're not always you're not always with your friend and they can't fix your form. So our idea is if people are tracking steps and they're tracking sleep, why don't they track their push-ups, for example, or their squats, right? I think it'd be nice to know how many push-ups you do in a year, in a week, per day. And our whole idea is we already have a very working model. We can improve the analytics, right? Add the voice feature, add a AI kind of analysis. Like, for example, you consistently bend your arms too much, or you consistently put your butt up, something like that. And you get some analytics. And what we think is our kind of thesis is if all 3 of us, let's say, are friends on the app, right? And you guys get a notification that I do 1,000 push-ups this week. I mean, you're very likely just out of ego and just out of, competitiveness, you're going to do some push-ups. And basically what we want to do is we want to just track, we want to stay single on our bread and butter, which is the push-up model. Obviously, we're going to expand maybe to other core models, but we're just going to start with push-ups and just give users basically a push-up tracker with the pose detection of the camera and some analytics. Something super, super simple. They don't have to go through a whole onboarding process. They don't have to go through all the features, right? And then the fun part is you can see yourself progressing on the leaderboard. Where am I on the leaderboard compared to my friends globally? How many push-ups am I doing a day, a week? And you can still, right? We're still keeping the duels, right? We can still challenge people. We want to kind of keep that competitiveness. But we think with this kind of new pivot, it simplifies the app quite a bit and it makes it more kind of enticing for someone to use.
Yeah, I thought it was a great idea. It reminded me like when I first started going to the gym, my friends would have like just on their notes app, they would track like how many push-ups, pull-ups, and dips they were doing each time they went in just to see how they progress. And having a tool that you can very quickly see like your progression, I think would be something that a lot of people might enjoy. And again, yeah, with the competitive aspect, I think that's very, very much like product-led growth. Like, if you use it, your friends use it, you know, we even had a somebody reach out saying that they host these push-up competitions at these company events and they don't have a good way of tracking people's push-ups and we're like, oh yeah, like we didn't even know this was out there, but the fact that we were hosting and we came up with at least this baseline idea kind of opened up some more doors and some more ideas to where we can go. And I know as I know for a fact just ironing that out, keeping it simpler, bringing it into a smaller space, we're gonna have a lot cleaner and a lot better app itself. I know for the first version, you know, the recommender system was pretty broken, and there were some UI issues. But this way, we can make a very much more professional looking app with, you know, a feature that we know for sure. Like we have the best push-up model out there, from what I can tell. Like testing out all these different apps, like Zing, um,
Red
what
Bull.
was it? Yeah, Zing Coach, Red Bull, their filter on Snapchat. Like,
Yeah, yeah, right. You can't really cheat our model, and that's kind of what we're enticing for a user. I mean, it's going back to what Ray said. It was our first app, and we're learning from our mistakes, and I think it's just normal along the journey. But I think really with this core just idea, we can build other features around it. But this core and this foundation, I think really could be a great solid idea.
but yeah, I wanted to ask too. You talked about oh, I forgot it. It's okay. Um, yeah, I'll let you keep talking if you want.
Yeah, I guess Ray, if you wanna, I don't know, add on or anything I might have missed.
Um, no, I think that it's a great pivot that is very necessary for us as a team. I think when we first started off, we didn't know exactly what kind of product we wanted to build, so we did all different products like achievements tracker, push-up model, recommender system that would guide you through a workout. And I think launching our app made us realize what kind of product market fit we have, and that's our models and our ability to provide valuable feedback to users. So, given that, I think this new focus would kind of lead us in a more focused direction, which is what we need.
I remember what I wanted to ask. Given where we are now, I want to ask, like, does it feel easier to create an app from 0 to 1? Like, do you think, you know, like, how quickly do you think creating a brand new app? I know with this new variation, it's going to be a lot quicker because we have a lot of the infrastructure there. But like, let's just say completely start over. Like, what are your thoughts on like how you would go and how you would build a new app from scratch?
Yeah, a new app with post detection or just like a new app with anything.
Just in general, you know, like what would you build? What would be your process? Like, how long do you think it would take?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think with knowing what we know now, I don't think it would take more than a few weeks to build an app out, honestly. Just looking back, we spent a lot of time, right? Packages, for example, package errors, compatibility was a lot of time we spent. Like sometimes my build would take 20 minutes and then they would fail, and back and forth. 5 hours would go by, no progress was made. I'm just changing packages. And kind of understanding all of that now, it makes everything a lot easier. Like you know what packages to use and kind of how to check the versions and checking for compatibility. And all you really need to like, right, focus, even for the whole Figma, probably another mistake we did. We built out the whole Figma, made the feature and everything, and now, you can just use a model to kind of give you a good maybe visualization. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You can tweak whatever you don't like that it makes, but that's probably like the quickest way. You don't have to do the whole, structuring of what's our idea, what's our Figma, what languages, and you kind of just, you can just build as quickly as possible. Um, yeah, I think it shouldn't take more than a few weeks, honestly, to build a whole app. Obviously, it depends on what you're building and how much you plan to scale it, right? You got to consider all those factors, but just a basic MVP that will probably have AI write like 80% of your code, I think, a few weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear, given I think we've been working on this for almost
Yeah,
I
like
want to say 6 months now.
4 or 5
That
months.
sound about right?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you kind of just you live you live and you learn, right? I mean, Ray as well, right? He spent three weeks learning off. It would take him 1 day to do authentication now. We have that experience. Obviously, we're still learning, and there's still a lot to learn. You know, a lot of still skills to kind of garner, but I think we can do it very fast with this new pivot as well. I mean, we should potentially have it up by next week. So, little sneak peek there. Um, yeah, I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't have more to add. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ray, do you have any thoughts there?
No, I think yeah, definitely going the best way to learn how to do a startup is just to do it. And I think that a lot of us learned exactly what kind of things we want to learn about working on a startup. And if we were going to do it again, no more than a couple weeks exactly. A lot of our issues were uh, issues that we ran into were due to a lack of experience. And now with that experience, I think we could move at a much faster pace. But then again, if this is just the beginning stages of a startup, if we were going to move forward into a later stage where we're expanding and scaling an app, I think it would be the same process all over again. New things to learn, new issues to encounter, and it's a journey that every product takes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it kind of seems like that's kind of the time we have today. Is there any last minute things that you guys want to share?
Um, New app will potentially be called Rep AI. So yeah, be on the lookout.
Yeah, I look forward to that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the episode today. Thank you, Nate and Ray, for being here. Really appreciate your insight and kind of your thoughts about how things are going. If anyone is just tuning in, you can actually find the first version of the app, SkillTree AI. It's on the App Store. You can look it up. And you could also check out our website at skilltreefitness.com. It's one word, SkillTree Fitness. Um, and yeah, if you enjoyed, if you think that, you appreciate our time, you like the app, feel free to give us a share, shout us out to some of your friends. We'd really appreciate any sort of positive feedback or even negative feedback. We'd love to hear. But either way, we really appreciate everyone that's listening in and tuning in. So thank you for being here and being a part of the community. So without further ado, I think that wraps us up.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Jack.
Jack.